What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TCG Empire YouTube channel. Today we are going over Tech Tuesday. If you're new here, you're not sure what it is. It's where we take the deck of the week, talked about on Monday, and we talk about some ways that you can make it better and some cards that you can play in your deck if you're struggling to play against the deck of the week. This week we did talk about the Lost Zone variant known as Lost Tina. This deck requires an immense amount of thinking, and after you're done thinking and get to 7 in the Lost Zone, you can Mirage Gate and then blow up things for 280, fueling your Lost Zone even more. And then once you're at 10, you can use Star Requiem. So, with the premise of that deck, you have Espeon VMAX that is a really good counter against it. Now, most Lost Tina lists do play Path to the Peak, so you might need to find a way to get rid of that. But as far as Espeon goes, this means that every swing that Giratina does, they can't use Star Requiem. They can, but due to the nature of Solar Revelation, it's going to prevent the effect, which means that you're not going to be KO'd. And this also stops things like Sableye, which means their only real out to attacking you is to use something like Greninja. They need to use something like Cramorant. And then they can use the attack. It's Lost Impact, right?
On what?
On Giratina.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
V-Stars attack.
They can use Lost Impact for 280, but if they bring up Espeon and try to kill it, they survive, or you survive. But also that means that if you have something like a 140 HP Gardevoir, they have to basically overkill it and hit, double the amount of damage that's on it in order to kill it. So Espeon's a super solid card, and it has a good attack when it comes to, being able to do 60x. Usually they'll supply a lot of energy on their board, so that way they don't have to rely on Mirage Gates on back-to-back turns. Usually they'll just try to, kind of set up their board in one turn, so that way they can do back-to-back Lost Impacts. So doing the 60x really isn't that bad at all. Next, Zach's going to talk about this Regigigas, but it's more of the idea behind it. So
Yeah, so this Regigigas is more so of a placeholder for just a strong one prizer or strong one prize decks in general, because the main way people try to take advantage of Lost Tina is using that Giratina to get those big one shots on multi-prize Pokemon, because you can go Star Requiem into Lost Impact, and that's 4 prizes across 2 turns. But if you start incorporating one prizers into their prize mapping, then it really kind of throws a wrench in what makes the Lost Tina so strong. So if your deck can kind of afford to, you should really try and explore what one prizers you can play in there that are not only good for like the Lost Zone matchup, but can be good for other ones as well.
yeah, Zach said it perfectly. You just kind of want to throw their prize map off, and as I said with the Espeon analysis, you want to make it to where they're really overcommitting to hit 280 and just take a single prize. So next card we got is V-Guard Energy. This has been played for a long time. It's kind of seen less play now, but it is a super solid card when Giratina's in the format. The Pokemon that this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from Pokemon V. This means that if you have something like a Lugia V-Star, your own Arceus V-Star, really anything, it means that they're taking 30 less damage, which means that in order for something like Giratina to actually one-shot those 280 HP Pokemon with a V-Guard, they need to dedicate a Choice Belt, and most lists don't really play that anymore. They usually provide trying to hit for 280 to get the KO, or if it's not quite enough, they'll finish with Sableye, which is a one prizer. So V-Guard is super strong just because it kind of puts a dent in their math, and if they don't have a way to, maximize their damage output, and they only hit for 280, in reality, they're only going to hit 250, and then from there, it's going to be kind of difficult for them to come back. It's that minus 30 is kind of the difference between losing a game and winning a game. Providing you need one more turn. So V-Guard is super solid. Overall, though, I mean, those are really the cards that you can run if you're trying to improve your matchup. There's not really many that we could think of. Lost Tina it's a good deck, but it's not really the most like teched out thing that you can tech for, and even, tech in it, as you'll see in the next set of cards. But Yeah, so those are some of the cards that you can think about running. Next, we're going to get into the cards that you can possibly run inside of your Lost Tina list, providing, you run into some of these counters or just want to try to improve matchups. So first card, Cleansing Gloves. I'm going to let Zach speak on this.
So cleansing gloves with Giratina is not necessarily a new combination. We do see this card often included in Arc Tina variants, and the main reason for that is because Tina can already naturally deal with a lot of two prize Pokemon, but there are some important ones that it's missing out on, like Mew VMAX, Guardy EX, and Espeon VMAX. And all of those happen to be psychic Pokemon. So rather than playing, just Choice Belt, which wouldn't work, versus a Guardy EX, you can actually get away with playing Cleansing Gloves, which gives you that extra 30 damage to round out those numbers so that way you can swing those matchups even more in your favor.
Then the next card we do have is Snorlax. Snorlax really isn't anything new when it comes to Lost Box. It's just been on the kind of downward trend of being played. But Snorlax is good because if you do run into those one prizer decks or really anything that's, kind of awkward and you feel like you need to hit 280 to KO something, but, it's overkill and you don't want to get rid of the energy with Lost Impact, you can actually use this Snorlax and you can use Thumping Snore for 180 damage. You can set this up in one turn with an attach and Mirage Gate, and better yet, it does have Unfazed Fat, which means if you're playing against the mirror, you're able to actually, not be impacted as much by Sableye or their own Star Requiem, which means, in the mirror match, this is a super solid card to play if your opponent's not expecting it. And not to mention it has 150 HP, so with that HP, it's not getting one shot by a Cramorant, and it means that if a Zacian is, looking at you dead in the face with a Guardy list, they have to have 3 energy on it, and so obviously they'll have 3 energy to attack, but it's still more that they have to commit to, and the whole premise of it is being able to hit the 180 means that you're two-shotting pretty much everything within the format, and you can power it up in one turn. So the secondary effect of the attack kind of is annoying, but there are cards in the format that can actually prevent this. So Snorlax is a good inclusion as an alternative one-prize attacker if you kind of feel like Cramorant isn't doing enough, and with the 110, most of the time it's not. Snorlax really comes in clutch, and it does one-shot a Lumineon as well. So next card, Fan of Waves. This is really the last card, so I'll let Zach talk about it.
So actually, really quick, before I talk about the Fan of Waves, I do want to mention one thing about the Snorlax. That secondary effect of the attack is actually rather annoying, having to flip 2 coins, and if either are tails, you stay asleep. But a really cool interaction that we got with the cards from Paldea Evolved is you can attach a Jet Energy to a Comfy, which will force it to the active, and then you get access to Flower Selecting, and then you already have that pivot option to go back into the Snorlax, assuming it survives. So the deck got even more ways to play around this Snorlax, almost making it a stronger include for the deck.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. Jet Energy is a very prominent card. But now back to the Fan of Waves aspect. We all know what this card does. I'm going to let Zach talk about it real quick, because it's really the last card that you can probably run within Tina before your list kind of starts getting too techy.
Yeah, so Fan of Waves could technically be interchanged with something like Temple of Sinnoh, but because this variant of the deck wants to, kind of capitalize on playing Path to the Peak, you are better off playing Fan of Waves, and all this really does is gets rid of those V-Guard energies. That's like the biggest thing, but you can also kind of use it as like a disruption tool rather than like an aggressive form. So like if you're playing against the Rapid Strike deck, you can use it to kind of get away with, stopping a Rapid Flow from coming out, so you can get rid of the energy that they attach prematurely and stuff like that. So it's a very versatile card, and it can definitely come up in a lot of situations. So I would definitely advise that you at least take a look at possibly including it in your list.
So guys, that's pretty much it as far as the cards that you can run within Tina if you're trying to kind of improve the deck. Lost Box as an engine, there's ways that you can tweak around with it, but overall, like you're trying to get, one goal done, and that's having Giratina basically blow everything up that it's looking at. And if you don't quite do it, then, you can finish up with something like Snorlax, or, Snorlax into things like Sableye or Cramorant and stuff. But overall, I mean, there's not really many cards that you can play against it, and there's not really many cards that you can play for it. The deck honestly sometimes just bricks itself, so depending on, the matchup, it all feels somewhat even. So try not to stress too much, just, focus on how many cards are in their lost zone and things from there. But overall, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. As always, thank you to Zach for helping me talk about some of these cards and come up with the list. It's always greatly appreciated. And yeah, I think that's it. So with that being said, I will catch you guys on tomorrow's episode of What to Buy Wednesday.